I'm from the US, but I've been living in Mexico for about a year now, and I can definitely say that since I've been here, I've had more fun than I've ever had in my life. While the work ethic in Mexico is a force that can't be matched, Mexicans know how to have a good time like you wouldn't believe. So today, we'll be covering the top 10 reasons Mexico is beating the USA at having fun, including the incredible Mexican beach atmosphere along the Pacific coast, the party favors everywhere you look, the food, the drinks, and everything in between. Now, number one on the list of why Mexico is so much more fun than any place on the planet is because Mexico has such a good mix of places worth visiting, like Monterrey for its big city life, San Miguel de Allende for its old colonial small town vibes, and world-renowned beach destinations like Puerto Vallarta, which is where I'm at now. And I know other countries have lots of beach towns, but this one is special. Puerto Vallarta stands out because it breaks the typical mold of beach resort towns. Most major beach destinations are built from sterile, master-planned tourist grids. Puerto Vallarta, however, you get world-class Pacific beaches combined with a real, living, historic Mexican city that grew organically over time. It evolved, and because it grew over a century, the downtown area features genuine colonial architecture. You get red tile roofs, cobblestone streets, and sprawling bougainvillea, rather than modern drywall resort complexes. The city was not designed to segregate locals from tourists. The historic downtown, El Centro, and the lively Zona Romantica flow naturally into residential neighborhoods, making it easy to experience authentic local life. In typical resort destinations, you are completely car dependent and need a taxi or a shuttle just to leave your hotel gates. Puerto Vallarta is entirely built for humans being on foot. But Puerto Vallarta is a big city, so if you're going to see all of it, you might want to look into getting a ride at some point. But PV's famous boardwalk is not a private hotel path. It's a vibrant, miles-long public plaza. Every day, local families, street performers, food vendors, and travelers gather here, creating a true community space that fosters organic connection. There is an immediate beach-to-town flow. You can walk straight off the sands of Playa de los Muertos and quickly step onto the cobblestone streets lined with family-run tienditas, local butchers, art galleries, and neighborhood taco stands. Puerto Vallarta sits in a geographically stunning, high-contrast pocket of the country, where the jungle meets the sea. Puerto Vallarta is nestled inside Banderas Bay, right where the dense, lush Sierra Madre Mountains plunge directly into the Pacific Ocean. And because of the dramatic mountain terrain, streets slope steeply upward, creating winding alleys, hidden staircases, and sudden, jaw-dropping ocean views from everyday residential blocks. This organic texture provides a constant stream of visual interest. Puerto Vallarta is world-renowned for its warm hospitality, safety, and progressive atmosphere. It hosts a highly active international population that lives side by side and interacts daily with local families. Since the town had a strong local identity before tourism took off, it never lost its soul to corporate chains. Thriving traditional markets, local seafood stands, and regional Mexican heritage remain the dominant fabric of daily life. For anyone looking to experience Mexico, Puerto Vallarta offers a unique sweet spot. You get the stunning beauty of the coast, but you never have to sacrifice the warmth, walkability, and vibrant real Mexico soul of a traditional town. The number two reason that Mexico is more fun is that there are plenty of legal businesses that do happen to sell the finest party favors in the world. Mexico has seen the birth of private cannabis clubs, cultivation associations, and advocacy spaces. These places prioritize education, responsible adult use, and genuine human connection. They act as social hubs where people can learn about cultivation and share ideas, stripped entirely of the aggressive corporate vibe. Now, I don't partake in such activities myself, and I am not recommending it, but I used to partake, and I know a good product when I see one. To be honest, I just stopped enjoying it all at some point, but I really did enjoy it for years, so I get what it's all about. But one day, for some reason, it just started to give me anxiety like you wouldn't believe. So there's absolutely no judgment on my part. And if this is your thing, I'm sure Mexico can accommodate you. But it's just not for me anymore. So if you're from the US and you're used to going to dispensaries, the products here are going to be ideal for the trip you're hoping for. Which brings us to number 3 on the list, because if you do like to partake in such activities as mentioned previously, you should know that unlike the US, Mexico is not a police state. Now don't get me wrong, there are police everywhere, but as long as you're minding your business and not causing a scene of some kind, the police here aren't going to mess with you. Now, in the US, I'm not a fan of police, but in Mexico, I'm cool with them because they leave me be. Unlike standard police forces, these units are specifically recruited and trained to act as protectors, guides, and liaisons for international visitors. They are often bilingual, highly visible, and stationed exactly where travelers gather. In places like Mexico City, many of these officers are actually trained paramedics mounted on motorcycles, meaning their primary daily objective is offering first aid, handling logistics, and helping people navigate the city safely rather than hunting for minor infractions. And that brings us to number 4 on the list. It's not just the police that mind their own business. Honestly, pretty much everyone minds their own business. Now, I know politicians and the US media is always talking about all the violence and organized crime in Mexico, but really, unless you're somehow involved with that world isn't going to be involved with you. In the US, there are in fact many gangs and mafioso, but how many of you have actually had a run-in with the mafia or the Crips or Bloods or Gangsters Disciples or anything like that? Probably none of you. Or if you have, it's because you went out of your way to be involved with that life. Now look, I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but for the vast majority of you, it's not something you need to ever concern yourself with. Just mind your business and don't get involved with things that have nothing to do with you. And that's it. But beyond that, everyone in Mexico seems to mind their business. There's no Karens, none of that. It's just vibes. If someone does ever approach you, they're probably either trying to help you or befriend you. At least that's been my experience. Number 5. If you like to have a drink while you're having fun, you are in the right place. Not only is alcohol available everywhere you look, but it's way less expensive than it is in the US. In my experience, beer and liquor in Mexico is about half the price it is in the US. And like I said, it's available everywhere. You can find hard liquor at local convenience stores and grocery stores. Plus, just like in the US, you can have Uber delivery bring it straight to your door. It's actually so cheap and convenient that I had to put it down and stop drinking for a while. I actually started to gain weight from all I was drinking and eating. So try to keep your health in mind. Which brings us to the number 6 reason Mexico is more fun than the US. And that is because delicious food is everywhere. You never have to look very hard for a place to get something to eat. And whenever you start to feel hungry, look to your right and then look to your left, and chances are you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And not only is it readily available, but we're talking about some of the best tasting meals you've ever had in your whole life. The street food in Mexico is beyond incredible. Everything is just packed with flavor, and the prices are enough to make McDonald's seem expensive, which now that I think about it, over the years McDonald's actually has gotten kind of expensive. And if you're going out for a bite to eat in Mexico, you have a fairly good chance of finding a local celebration, which is number 7 on the list. There are constantly parades and festivals and parties going on in most towns in Mexico. And if you get the opportunity to go to something like this, you need to seize that opportunity because nobody knows how to throw a party as good as a Mexican does. At these events, there's always good food, loud music, and everyone there is always smiling, laughing, visiting with friends. It's just a really cool atmosphere. And it's definitely one of my favorite things about Mexico. Reason number 8 of why Mexico is more fun than the USA is because Mexico still has arcades. When I was a kid, arcades were everywhere in the US, but they've been dying out to the point that they're pretty much extinct at this point. But in Mexico, they're in almost every mall you come across. Now, I'm not trying to make myself seem old, but I was a kid in the 90s, and during that time period, arcades were the pinnacle of fun. And in Mexico, they still are. I haven't played skee ball since I was a little kid, but in Mexico, I'm free to enjoy this game at almost any mall I choose. And there are a lot of malls in Mexico, especially in Monterrey. If you're ever lucky enough to visit, I suggest you give it a try. Reason number 9 that Mexico is more fun than the US is that mall culture is alive and well here. And I've made a full video about this topic before, but seeing malls that are this active in Mexico is an absolutely stunning sight. I remember when I was a kid, it seemed like everything fun was always at the mall. But today in the US, most malls are just a shell of their former self. Now, I'm not trying to harp on this topic for too long because, like I said, I've already made a whole video about this. But if you want to find out more about the mall culture in Mexico, I've linked the video below. And that brings us to number 10 on the list. You can make friends everywhere you go. And I hope you'll be my friend and join me on this non-stop journey through Mexico, where we'll be going everywhere you've always thought about going. So if you're still watching, please let me know where we should explore next and where you're watching from. Make sure to like the video and please subscribe. Till next time.